Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the shortlist announcement of the Oxford Bookstore Book Cover Prize. I'm thrilled to introduce the Oxford Bookstore Book Cover Prize, a celebration of exceptional book cover designs that capture the essence of storytelling and creativity. This award recognizes the talented designers behind the captivating covers that bring our favorite books to life. A first of its kind of honor for splendor in book design and endeavor by the iconic Oxford bookstores to perceive and empower the phenomenal work of artists, designers, and distributors crosswise over India. The prize acknowledges the significance of the adjust of illustration and story, especially in our undeniably visual age. I would like to welcome our jury members present today. We have with us Chair of Jury, Dr. Alka Pande. We have Dr. Kunal Basu, Shobhaa. We have with us Anja Reideberger, who's our guest juror this year, and Mr. Samar Jodha, who's also our guest juror. They'll be announcing the shortlist as we go forward. The shortlist that we announced today is taken out from a range of some 200 book covers that came to us as nominations. 26 covers made it to the long list. And we'll show a quick presentation of the long list covers that we just announced a few weeks earlier. So here are the 26 covers that have made it to the long list. We had a title called The Lost People's Archive, a novel, A Woman Burnt, Becoming Goan, Byomkeshi Limerick, Chronicles of an Hour and a Half, Conversations with Aurangzeb, Dream Machine, Epicurious, Feathers, Fools and Farts, Manipuri Folk Tales Retold, Filmy Stories, For Now It Is Night, From Makaras to Manticores, How to Love in Sanskrit, Mahi the Elephant Who Flew Over the Blue Mountain, Namma Bangalore, The Soul of a Metropolis, Pranab, My Father, A Daughter Remembers, Quarter Life, Shahjahanabad, Mapping a Mughal City, Shifting Lands, Moving People, Livelihood, Migration, Climate Change, and Natural Disasters in the Indian Sundarbans, Stolen Hour and Other Curiosities, Strings, The Greatest Indian Stories Ever Told, Two Forms of Art, Vanya, Yarek, Brave New World. Of these 26 covers, we'll be announcing the 6 covers that have made it to the shortlist. I'd like to invite our Chair of Jury, Dr. Alka Pande, to say a few words before we go ahead with the announcements. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Neeta. Needless to say, I'm delighted to be here back in Kolkata, the city of my birth, which calls me year after year. I'm very happy to be also in the presence of my wonderful jury. Half of it is like family. We've been together for the last 10 years, Shobhaa and Kunal. It seems as if we are one family, and we've been growing with the book cover, Anja, and the most recent entrant, Samar Jodha. I also want to thank Neeta, who's walked the journey with Kunal and Shobhaa, Preeti and me for the last 10 years, and Dr. Shashi Tharoor. We've been looking at art book covers and seeing the change in the visual language, seeing the change in the content of the books, and also enjoying the whole journey of judging the art book, the book cover prize. Because to repeat, as I always do, we've always been told never judge a book by the cover, but ultimately when we go to a bookshop, you know, the cover of the book pops out, and often, if we don't know the writer, we go to look into the cover, the pages of the book, by looking at the book cover. So we're going to be actually discussing later, and I'm not going to say much more, but I do want to compliment Preeti Paul for continuing the book cover, for continuing to put the wind under the wings of the fabulous designers, the cultural diversity which we have by way of content, the mainstream English books that we have a lot of, plus the whole host of vernacular literature which has opened up for us, the many, many independent publishers who have come in and independent writers who've come in different languages, which has been very interesting for us. Thank you, Neeta, for steering the art, for the cover book prize, because we are also doing an art book prize, so I'm getting a bit, it's dovetailing one into the other. So I wanted to thank Neeta for walking the journey and steering the book cover for the last 10 years. I've been asked to give you the name of one shortlistee, as Neeta has already told you. We had 26 books out of 131 nominations, 62 publishers, imprints, and 12 solo entries. So I'm announcing the title called Conversations with Aurangzeb. Are you going to turn it around? Yeah. The designer is Devangana Dash. The author is Charu Nivedita. The publisher is Perennial, an imprint of HarperCollins. Neeta, do I announce the next name? Should I ask Samar? Shobhaa, would you please kindly come here and announce? Thank you.
Good evening, and a big thank you to AKLF. 10 years, and like Alka said, it's like being part of a family. And with 2 new family members starting this year, so it's looking forward to next year and the next. My only observation to add to what Alka said is that thank God, at least so far, the covers have been designed by extremely gifted, talented human beings. We didn't get any submissions from AI. So I think that's a big one. Secondly, the cover design often was relegated to a position that unfairly, you didn't think about who was behind this brilliant cover. Till this prize 10 years ago was instituted, and thank you so much for having the vision to do this. It's like a Bollywood film hit becoming, the biggest hit of the year. And everyone, for example, thinking Tauba Tauba is written by Vicky Kaushal and danced by him. Whereas there's a whole lot of people behind creating those hits, but no one thinks about them, no one acknowledges them. And I'm glad that even in Bollywood, a lot of change has come in. People are looking at the design of the publicity, the people behind the projection of a song, who runs the show besides just the lead actors. So here are the 2 books that the title is Epicurious, designer Sharanya Kunath, author Srilata Menon, publisher Hachette India Children's Books. I'm also announcing title number 3, which is Feathers, Fools and Farts, Manipuri Folk Tales Retold. Designer Samar Bansal, author L. Somi Roy and Tangjam Hindustani Devi, publisher Puffin, and imprint of Penguin Random House. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Thank you to AKLF for doing this. And I completely echo what Alka and Shobhaa just said. I tend to think of book covers slightly differently. I see book covers as book art. Did you know that Pablo Picasso had done amazing book covers, number of them, as well as illustrated books, poetry by Paul Eluard, Tristan Zara, and others? Salvador Dali was much in demand by publishers. Publishers sort of deluged him with requests to do book covers, and he's done excellent book covers for The Divine Comedy, for Macbeth, for Alice in Wonderland, and for Don Quixote. And if you look at any one of these covers, you will see that they are what good art and exciting art is supposed to be, with a connection to the book. Now, I want to use the word connection cautiously. Okay, what is the relationship between the cover and the subject matter? You know, in some book covers, and we have seen some in this list as well, the book cover mirrors the content of the book. Okay, so if it's a book about Calcutta, it has a visual of Calcutta. Okay, and in some book covers, the book artist, not the book cover designer, but the book artist, has interpreted the subject in her or his way. And therefore, the book cover becomes a work of art in that it is surprising, it's evocative, and the image brings forth lots of connections in the minds of the viewer. So when I look at book covers, and I'm looking at book covers to adjudicate, as in this case, I'm looking to judge the book in terms of the art that is associated with it. Okay, so having said that, I do need to make an announcement. The fourth in the list of 6 is a book called Quarter Life. The designer is Edmund Spitz. The author is Devika Rege. And the publisher is Fourth Estate, who's an imprint of HarperCollins. So congratulations. Thank you.
Hello, good evening everybody. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Oxford Bookstores for inviting me to this incredible jury. It has been an amazing experience to look at book covers strongly from the design aspect. And me coming from a German perspective, I always had this very interesting experience in comparing German book cover design with what I saw in this competition. So thank you for this, and thank you also for welcoming me to the family. It's my pleasure now to announce the 5th title that is on the shortlist, which is For Now It Is Night. Designer Amit Malhotra, author Hari Krishna Kaul, publisher Perennial, and imprint of HarperCollins.
Hi everyone. Okay, I'm the last one. You know, one bit of mine. I come from space of visual communication, from photography and branding space. Book covers are definitely a branding exercise for publisher as well as author, because you know, what you see on the top is how you pick, as mentioned earlier by Alka. So it was tough because we had so many covers to go through. But I must say it's always a you know, a learning curve, because each time you pick up a new book and you kind of, because obviously I really can't get into reading the entire book, but just looking at the cover, reading some, you know, bits on it, and then you can make the connection. So, and I think that's what makes a book cover successful, because if you do it really in isolation, if you keep it too abstract, you may miss the sales finally, if you know what I mean, you know. So I'm going to put my, this is the 6th one, which is, the title is How to Love in Sanskrit. Designer is Rashmi Gupta, author is Anusha Rao and Suhas Mahesh, and publisher is HarperCollins Publishers India. Thank you.
For the next part of this session, I'd like to invite our festival director, Ms. Anjum Katyal, to please come on the stage and start the conversation. I'll just get a chair as well.
It's been a real visual treat to see these 6 unveilings happen in front of us, and I can only imagine what a wonderful journey it must have been. And I was wondering if you had lots and lots of discussion between all of you, and whether there were lots of differences and different points of view which had to be reconciled when you were selecting 6 out of so many. So that's something to think about, and I'll just join you now. I was waiting for that to arrive. So maybe we can start by just talking briefly about the process and, you know, whether, what were the things that you concurred on and which were the things you kind of argued about. Get a sense of how the jury worked. This great family, 10 years family. So tell us, who wants to go first?
Actually, Anjum, the process was not a consultative process at all. Okay. The judge, we met in isolation. In other words, I met with myself, and I looked at the covers, and I put up the scores in a sheet, and I sent it off to Neeta.
Okay.
So one thing perhaps to consider going forward is to encourage this consultative process, which would answer your question. What were the criteria we brought to bear in making the decisions? What were the points of agreement? What were the points of disagreement? But we actually didn't have that in the judgment process.
Right. So what happens very often when you have this process that you've just outlined is that it's when the marks are differing greatly that the discussion begins. Sometimes if it's you know, it's almost more or less unanimous, then that doesn't happen. Does anybody else want to comment a little bit on this, Alka?
Alka should, because
little
she
bit,
sort
and
of
then
holds it all
move
together.
on.
So she needs to tell us more about how we arrive at these, at the shortlist.
So, can you hear me? Yeah. So, thank you for asking the question, Anjum. And what I'd like to say is that since the journey has been of 10 years, in the beginning there was a consultative process, but the process all changed when COVID happened, if you remember. Because before that we were consulting, we were talking, and then COVID happened. And I think in a particular way, Neeta and I and Preeti, we decided to let it be like that, because we didn't want a kind of consultations to happen. We wanted, because it's a very diverse jury, and I wanted the jury to be also diverse, because you know, the book cover is like a director of a film. Nobody knows the number of people who work behind, from the producer, from the line producer, to the cinematographer. So there are a lot of things, a lot of people which are involved in making a book. But the person who's actually illustrating the cover and bringing in a visual language, we had a writer, both are writers. Shobhaa is a fantastic writer, as Dr. Tharoor is, Shashi is, as Kunal is. I'm a writer too. We all write different genres. So we all have a different sense of aesthetics. And we brought in Samar, as he rightly told you, because he's a branding person. He's a photographer. He comes from an advertising background. So we wanted to bring in what is it which gets you the eyeballs. So this is the way we did it. And we have come now through a non-consultative process, which is post-COVID, and we got in these 6 covers. Now, after almost 150 books that we went through, this is going to be probably, we are going to decide, Neeta and I are going to decide, if there is too much of a discrepancy, we can have a Zoom meeting, because everybody in today's world is in a different part of the world at any given time. Samar is in Dubai, Kunal was in the USA, Anja and me were in Delhi, Preeti was in Morocco, and Shobhaa is all over the world. So the only thing is that we are a deeply committed family. So I get a quick thing on my email, I'll be there. So that means that her nomination will come. Wherever she is, whichever part of the world she is traveling, the nominations come in time. Now we are going to see with the last 6, if there's too much of a debate, we then get on to a Zoom call. This is what technology does to us.
Thank you for clarifying that, because it's always interesting. I don't know of any other book cover prize. And it's always interesting to know the process that goes into this. So we thought that we'd have a very brief discussion on the fact that we have people from, as Alka has pointed out, very diverse areas which are related to books. As a writer, as a visual artist, as an art historian who's worked with aesthetics, as a photographer, an installation artist and branding person. So they're all in the world of books from very different spaces. And in the last 10 years that we've had this book cover prize, the way people consume, approach and buy books has changed radically. And now you're more likely to have seen your book online or on a screen than to have actually seen it in a bookstore. You'll probably end up seeing it on a bookshelf last. And most of your decisions are taken when you're seeing it on the screen. So that makes the onus, I was thinking that the onus of the book cover, on the book cover, in terms of the rest of the book, is enhanced a lot. Because you're not really flipping through. You're not reading lines here and there to see what you feel about it. You're actually looking, excuse me, there's a mic on that's, please, can you shut that? Who's on the mic?
Tell them to
come on stage.
444888.
Pinaki.
444888. Harabina phone.
We've got comic relief happening right here. Okay, so I was saying that the onus on the book cover, in this world where you are bombarded with images, I mean, not a second of your life goes by without images hitting you all the time. And here is the book cover, which is yet another image that's coming to you. And it has to speak for so much. It has to speak for a whole book that it is standing in for. So tell me, how do you feel that your way of looking at how book covers actually work, do you think that's changed? What works more? What doesn't work so well? What would you have to keep in mind to know that, to figure out that a book cover has to first work in this digital on-screen space? Would they be the same basic principles?
Well, you pointed something very right about that. How we consume today is gone to such a small screen, from a laptop to, to iPad to now to a phone. And design plays obviously a very critical role. When you're holding a book, it doesn't matter if it's a small paperback, but when you go on to a digital screen, everything gets compressed, including your font and all that detailing what you thought works really lovely on a big screen while you're designing it. So I think, it's going to get even tougher. And because of the attention span is so short, it becomes even more difficult that how do you grab the attention of, of the buyer into that. And I think it's going to, and then throw in, as we were talking earlier about throwing AI in there, which is going to be so much more researched and all that stuff. So, I mean, we've got a very big jungle, very unpredictable jungle out there. Anybody's guess where we're going to go with this. But I think what still I really believe is that finally what really works is that you need to connect to the substance inside. If you get too abstract about it, it takes 2 seconds to, it's not a physical book you're carrying that you're traveling and you have to read it. You can just put off the screen and load something else onto it,
Right. So you mean, yes,
I'd
Shobhaa.
just like to add, can you hear me? Thank you. Something on a personal and humorous note, because as Kunal mentioned, great artists in the world have designed book covers and we have not always been aware of it. Well, I was very lucky when M.F. Hussain designed 2 book covers of mine. But you ask today's generation whether they even know who M.F. Hussain is, or whether it matters to them that he's done these two wonderful covers, and they'll probably say, well, no, we don't know who he is. I mean, attention span, there we go. For my last book, which was titled Insatiable, I had to reach a very young design team. They didn't know what the word meant. They kept calling it insatiable, and that's okay, but they didn't know what it meant. When it said, my hunger for life, they asked me very seriously, will there be recipes in the book, and is it about food? And the first submissions came with pictures of fruit bowls and various just fruits, vegetables, salads. And I said, no, it's not a food book in that sense. So then they said, in what sense is it? So sometimes it's a generational thing as well, to say hunger for life. They literally took it as hunger for going to a new restaurant or recipes and things like that. So communication is very key, and to be able to leave a sense of mystery on a cover, to me, makes it more attractive and appealing. It doesn't have to define the contents of the book. Rather, it has to make you think that if this is the cover, what could possibly be, what could the book be about?
Right. Anya, would you like to add something?
Yes, I would like to add. Also, I would like to say that I think the physical book still plays an important role. So I see still that it has a strong importance to go actually to a bookstore to feel the book and buy it there. Nevertheless, you're completely right. The digital is increasing immensely, and I see many publishing houses taking this as an opportunity to create different covers. So obviously, when you have the physical book in your hand, you have many more possibilities to design and to play also with the material, which you don't have online. So they create specific covers that work online, that have a stronger focus on, let's say, typography that is very much readable, right?
That's
or strong images. And I think it's also a chance to follow this path.
Yeah. So for example, hot foil printing or textured covers wouldn't work in the digital space at all, because you wouldn't get that effect of the glint of foil or the rough texture which works in a physical cover, right? Kunal, you wanted to say something?
When my first novel came out, in English of course, and then the French translation came out, and I'm fiendish with respect to covers, and I'm a failed artist, so I think this is also my space. And I give a lot of grief to my publisher, I give a lot of grief to designers and so on and so forth, and I like to build a relationship with the designer so that we know that we're doing something which actually makes sense to that person and makes sense to me. But when the French edition came out, then it basically was a white cover with black and blue lettering, okay? And it confused me. I mean, is this the cover, or is this sort of like a mock-up and then something else is going to follow suit? And they said, no, this is the cover. This is how we do books, okay? And so I recognize that, there are books and there are books. I write literary fiction. 2,000 people read our books hardcover, 2,300 if you're lucky. Okay, we don't sell the large numbers that mass market books sell. Okay, and so for readers of literary fiction, it's a very different kind of an eye to readers of memoirs, to readers of cuisine, to readers of self-help, to readers of adventure, and so we shouldn't mix up everything and put them in the same place. You see, Samar, in my other life, I'm a professor of marketing. I've been a professor of marketing for 40 years. Okay? And so some of the brand territory that you're traversing is something that I traverse with my students. However, this one thing I've come to realize as an author is to understand what kind of book am I writing and what kind of readership am I expecting, what kind of readership is the publisher expecting. Okay? So it's not everything is about what will look good on the mobile, what will look good on a laptop. Okay? Because my readers will essentially, or if I were a debut writer writing literary fiction, would read me based on reviews, will read me based on recommendations, will read on the basis of word of mouth. Why is then the cover important to me? The question may then be asked. Because a book is also an artifact. So once a book is purchased, it sits on my desk, it's on the bookshelf, okay? It's on the dining table, somebody must have left it there and reading it. It becomes a part of the household. It becomes a part of the living space that we inhabit. And because we want to have our living spaces presented in an aesthetic fashion, a book becomes a part of the aesthetics that we inhabit. Okay, and
that's a nice romantic response, Kunal.
Yeah,
and
so
long may that approach continue to books.
Yeah.
Because I know so many people now who are switching more and more to handheld devices.
Anjum, I don't want to take up more of your time. I know you're running out of time, because as a marketing professor, I recoil a bit against all this branding bullshit. Okay, because I've been teaching it for 40 years. Okay, if a book is good, if a book is intrinsic, if it's powerful, if it's authentic, it will make its way through, cover or no cover. And the French have consistently shown that. The French have consistently shown that.
No, I know. I was intrigued by the fact that the French believe in very plain covers. And I remember just basically lettering, just the title, very no-nonsense. And I remember asking, aren't you sort of seduced by all this wonderful art that you see on book covers, visuals, illustrations? And the answer I got was very interesting. They said that we believe that the book is more about what's inside the book. And we want people to buy it for that reason, not because it has a very attractive cover. Now, that's one way of looking at things, but the world has also moved on.
My experience with the French publishers was very different. They wanted the books to be exoticized. They took a lot of trouble to get the cliché pictures of a very beautiful, she was not even an Indian girl, perhaps from Jamaican girl, but dressed up as an Indian bride. The works with the bindis and the mang tikka and a veil and absolutely smashing covers. I mean, you just had to stop, and you didn't necessarily want to know who's written the book. It was an arresting cover.
Photograph,
and
yeah.
all the covers that they've done of my books have been similarly not the stark black and white and blue, thank God, but extraordinarily well designed and very pleasing. But yes, cliche.
So
in
I
that
think
sense.
what you're saying sort of echoes, Kunal, that it's the audience that they're aiming for, the readership that they're expecting, and they're designing the book accordingly. Alka, would you like to say something before we ask for a few questions? We've just got about 7 minutes left.
When I'm looking and I'm hearing what both Kunal and Shobhaa had to say, and of course what Samar said and Anja, I think it's also to do with different cultures, because the Germans have a very specific way of looking at their publishing industry. The greatest book fair is in Frankfurt, and when you go there and you see the kind of, it's all about cross-culture. The experience of Shobhaa and Kunal is very, very French. I've worked a lot with the French. I've done a massive show in Paris in the City of Love on the Kama Sutra. And what I found with the French is that they take themselves very, very seriously when it comes to any kind of artistic expression. And I may be clobbered on my head on that, but they think they have given the world culture, fashion, gastronomy. Even when they put up an exhibition, they are very, very philosophical and cerebral about it, and they look at the letter set. They look and they try and dumb it down to another level. Whereas we in India are a deeply sensual lot. We are very sculptural in what we do. Even if you look around, more than painterly, we are a very sculptural sensibility. It's all about the touch, it's about the haptic, it's about color. So when Shobhaa talks about exoticizing, I agree with her, because they probably didn't know what to deal with it and they get very nervous about it. So then the French become, they really exoticize, and they in fact don't understand the difference between a Jamaican and an Indian girl, but they go in for symbolism. So when you look at the book covers which are being designed now in India, they are becoming to a certain extent, many designers are becoming they have an international, global, cosmopolitan language to them. When you are looking at the vernacular, many of them are very poetic and lyrical because they are romanticizing the language. So when you see what we saw in all the book covers, you could actually also see a regional difference in them. You could make out that this is Bengali literature, this is from South India, this is Hindi. So the language, the romance of the language was coming out in the book covers. And talking of technology, because of audio books now, the book covers may not be that relevant. It is in the publishing where there are physical books that the book cover becomes important. But the good thing is that every publisher is taking more pains to look at the visual language and the iconography of the book covers. So I think it's a very positive move ahead in spite of CMYK, in spite of AI, in spite of the tonal variations changing in color and the actual book. I'll just end with one example of art books, catalogs, and fiction and non-fiction writing. You know, we are getting an exhibition of Dali to India for the first time, and the international gallerist who's bringing Dali to India, he wanted actually to change the cover of this big book which he's doing. He said, can we have velvet and gold? Because he wanted to take it to another level. Now, the Indian publisher will never think of velvet and gold anymore, because for them, the cost of paper has increased. The book, it's become a price-sensitive market. Now with digital books, if you are reading on Kindle, the price becomes different. So the whole publishing industry has changed. But when you're looking at art books and you're looking at big-ticket artists, the publisher, the gallerist does not think about money. Then they take it as an act of creative expression. So velvet, gold, embossing doesn't matter. But when you're looking at trade books, for color printing, everything is changing, and I think it's a very fluid, changing market, very, very interesting, and very few book art is being done. Book art is only being done inside museum spaces, gallery spaces. In the publishing industry, it's more about trade and and numbers.
Right.
Really.
So we've actually come full circle back into this sort of dichotomy between the branding part or the marketing part of the book cover and the art and the design and the graphic part of a book cover. And I think that is the dilemma in most of these industries which are straddling creativity and business, like in music, like in certainly in publishing. We'll always have a fine balance, I think, between needing to get the book to the right or readership and the right audience, balance your costs, but also keep the artistic and the graphic part in mind. So it's been very interesting to have all your points of view. Thank you so much. And here's to 10 more years of the book cover prize and watching the evolution and the difference in design as the years go forward. Thank you very much. We have a second part to this program where we're going to have a presentation by Pinaki De, who incidentally has been a past winner of this very prize, and especially for Kunal's book, Kolkata, was one of the books that he won for. And Pinaki is going to talk to us about this very exciting new book that is being brought out by the Ray Archives, by Penguin. They're doing a special series. And this is a book on 50 years of Sonar, Kella, one of the most beloved films of Ray, based on his story. And he's going to do an exciting presentation on the visuals and graphics from that book. So we shall love you and leave you. and see you hang on for the later part of the session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, we have a bonus part of this particular session. That is, of the book Feluda and Golden Fortress, which is celebrating 50 years of race Sonar Kella, deciphering the new volume of graphic designing by graphic designer Pinaki, who is an award-winning graphic designer and illustrator. He is a member of the Society for Preservation of Satyajit Ray Archives. His layout designs of Satyajit Ray book, based on the archival manuscripts, helped to preserve his legacy. A TEDx speaker and a Charles Wallace Trust Fellow with a PhD in comic theory, he is an editor of the comics anthology Longform and the Indian Comics Advisor of Magnesia, the exhibition on Asian comics curated by Paul Grevitt for the Barbician, London. Pinaki is an associate professor of English literature. Let us all put our hands together and welcome Mr. Pinaki Dey onto the stage.
Can I be heard? Yeah, wonderful. Can we have the visuals, please? Yep. People always ask me what is there more to tell about Sonar Kella, right? Because all of us in Bengal already know about Sonar Kella, and it is very difficult to tell something new about it. And so when Penguin wanted to bring out a book on the 50 years of Sonar Kella, the Golden Fortress, we were very apprehensive. And by we mean the editor Sandeep Ray, Ray's son, and the co-editor Riddhi Goswami. So this is the book that came out of it. And somehow we wanted to plan it in a certain way, which will give a very different idea of what Ray was trying to do in Sonar Kella. So one of the good things is Sonar Kella has now been restored, so you can see a new version of it. And this book can act as a wonderful companion to it. Now, as we all know, if you can just see the visuals, can we go to the next visual? Sonar Kella was actually, published in 71 as a book. It was first serialized in Desh, Sharodiya Desh, in 71. In the same year, it was actually, published as a book. It is very interesting to note that the first cover that you see was the initial cover. And after the film was published in 1974, the cover got changed. And this is something that we do now very often. But during that time, it was quite revolutionary. Ray insisted that, you should change the cover to the film because the film has a more recall value now. Okay? So next slide, please. So, one of the good things is, many people don't know that the book is very different from the film. And that is what makes, us to revisit the book again and again. It was translated to various languages, to Japanese, of course, to German and to French, as you can easily see, and Malayalam as well. I think the Malayalam cover is there. There are many other covers which actually I didn't put in. But you can easily understand with Ray, his reputation is so much that the books immediately get translated to other languages. But, when he wanted to do, and you can see the covers are very different from the kind of covers that we have here. It's also a bit of exotizing India and Rajasthan. It plays on to that, Rajasthan thing too much, that princess kind of thing. Probably it has got very little to do with the story itself, right? One very interesting, can you go to the next slide, please? So when Ray wanted to do the film, he wanted to do the film in a radically different way. Many people don't know the climax of Sonar Kella was actually shot in Jaisalmer, right? And Jaisalmer Fort. But if you read the original novel, the climax is not in Jaisalmer Fort. It is actually in probably a place which you can call Kuladhara, right? The ghost village, he doesn't give you the name, but you can easily understand that it's Kuladhara. But that is what Ray wanted to do. He wanted to make it more dramatic. He wanted the huge backdrop of the fort to be there so that, you can actually get that, canvas of Rajasthan more into play. Now, when Sonar Kella was prepared, this was the first teaser that was brought out. And many people who are actually associated with the film were completely baffled because it doesn't show the actor or the actress. It doesn't give you the story. And, during that time, teaser was not there. Doing a teaser was unimaginable. And do you know how it is done? It is a 30-40 poster, and it is done in silk screen. So it is done to the size. And today also in the Ray archive, that is in Ray's house, we have the original poster. And it's a delight to, look at the poster. The feel, the texture of it is amazing. As a graphic designer, it's a kind of a privilege to work with these real materials. And I feel that there is something in it that we miss today in today's digital world, right? So can we go to the next one? So after the teaser came the real poster, and, Feluda, of course, Soumitra was unveiled. Soumitra was actually very apprehensive to play Feluda. He said, with these kind of colorful villains, what will I do? Because I'll be completely lost. And Ray said, no, don't worry. This will be your most cult kind of, thing that you have done, because ultimately people will remember you as Feluda, So next, but one thing with Ray is the amazing amount of time he used to prepare, he used to take in order to prepare everything. And we have loads of sketches of everything, right from the room where Feluda will first meet the client, right from the amazing amount of detail that is there. So can you come to the next slide? So this is the drawing. And can you see the detailed nature of the drawing he did for the room? And even the smallest details are covered. And this makes Ray very special. In fact, you will be very surprised to know. Can we go to the next slide? So look at the character development. So when he was actually trying to do Feluda, he had Soumitra in mind, so that was a settled thing. But for Lalmohan Ganguly, Jota, the writer, the drawing was very different. But when for the film he was actually auditioning actors, he completely changed everything. And there was a time that, he actually began to model Jatayu after, Santosh Datta, and there was he actually, he told us, it told a lot of interviewers that, Feluda is not possible after Santosh Datta died, because it's impossible to do it. Because he has somehow owned and possessed that part like nobody else. Next part, look at the villains. So that is mere drawing, but now you can see that even instructions are also there. And the instructions are the character notes, the kind of questions that you may ask about the characters. The actors may ask about the characters, and the kind of answers he will give. So you can see the kind of detailing he is doing. Next slide. And even the details regarding each and every part of the dress in each and every scene. So we have amazing amount of details given in the books for each and every character. For each and every scene, even the kind of pullovers, the kind of material, the texture of materials people will, wear, all the actors will wear are all there. So this is Feluda, this is Topshe, and can we go next slide? Look at this. So we have loads of all this. In fact, this book would have been, a huge kind of a tome if we gave everything away. We are keeping back a bit so that we can give it next time around. But, you can get the feeling of what he used to do. The kind of planning. Next. And these are the title cards. As a designer, I feel, the title cards of Satyajit Ray ranks, as one of the best. It's the work of a genius. I can only remember of Saul Bass. Remember, Bass was just a designer, right? He was not making films. People mention Hitchcock, whose title cards are amazing, but I don't think he used to do it himself. He used to sketch, but not this kind of. Kairastomi, maybe a bit more. A bit here and there, but nobody did this like Satyajit Ray. Look at the way he has incorporated Mukul's drawings in the title card. Because, everything starts with Mukul drawing about Rajasthan. So everything starts off with the title cards, and their title cards are drawn like a child. Now, if you are an accomplished illustrator, if you are good enough, you know how difficult it is to imitate the writing of a child, the drawing of a child, the writing of a child. Can you see? Even the writing, and look at the way it's all about Rajasthan. If you actually arrange the title cards together, you can get the entire story. It's not as if the title cards are just whimsical, they are just random. If you just put all the title cards together, this happens in Kanchenjunga, this happens in each and every, even in Pather Panchali, you can see the title card is written in, in a different kind of pen, the Khager column as it is said. And then when Aparajita, you can see that modernity creeping in and you have the pen writing it down in type. So, his title cards are significant because he actually adds to it. And that makes him such a nuanced kind of a designer. That's what I feel as a designer myself, that, you need to somehow look at Ray also as a designer. He's almost designing his films to the T, and he's getting it so right that you cannot find anything amiss. Okay, in fact, a first viewing may not give you the right kind of vibes. Maybe the second or the third viewing may give you. Look at the sets, even the trees, the arrangement of the trees, the scenography. Today we have scenographers to do it. Ray used to do it himself. So, people may cringe today about that, kind of big team that you need, or, a kind of small team that I cannot work with. Ray was just like a one-man team, right? And next is the wonder. So this is, can you see the detail? So this appears for only 1 second in the film, and he has designed the entire book cover. Only 1 or 2 seconds in the film, Lal Mohan's, book. Can you see the book? And he has actually designed it. Moyuk Chaudhary helped him, the great comic artist. But this is done by Ray himself. Next slide. And this is something I want to show you. And because we have very little time, and this is just, kind of a short introduction to the book. This is the schedule of the shooting of Sonar Kella. And you can see the kind of details that has been done. One thing is very interesting. Can you see? When you need camels, there is a small camel, When you need peacocks. So, we think about emojis, right? We think emojis are something that you can, you know instantly. Ray was actually working in the time when there was no emoji. And even then, you can actually, so what was happening, he could actually plan this to a T, and he will lose not even a single second while shooting. And you can actually see Rajasthan. He had already promised his child actors and all that. You can also see Rajasthan a bit, and you have to shoot, right? So he had this way, with child actors and other actors, and that is because of the kind of, strict scheduling that he used to do. So, this book is about all this and much more. You have interviews, you have side tracks and all that. It looks very slim, but I can tell you, you can find a lot of new things. In fact, the translation is by Gopa Majumdar, but there is one thing we wanted to give you, but we couldn't because, the manuscript is incomplete. Ray himself started to translate Sonar Kella. But since it is an incomplete manuscript, and we couldn't give it here, but maybe one day, there will be a time when we will publish that manuscript of Ray's own translation, and then it will be such a feast because it has never been translated, by Ray himself. That is what we know, right? But he actually started to translate it. It went to like 4 or 5 chapters. And, even in the translation, you can think that the story is slightly different. Because he's the creator, he could control the kind of story. He was actually thinking the target audience. He had hit the target audience in mind, and he was trying to calibrate it accordingly. And so that's it. Can I just have the next slide? And this is my last slide, and, and then I will just end here. This is actually a picture, a very rare picture. So you can see Ray wearing another kind of a jobba, you can say, kind of a different kind of clothing, right? So this is Ray acting out Mandar Bose's hand. So you can see this is Mandar Bose's clothes he's wearing. And there is a scene where Mandar Bose is actually tinkling the bottle to draw Mukul's attention. That is not done by Kamu Mukhopadhyay, that is done by Ray. And you know why? Because he wanted to actually get Mukul's reaction to the tea. He thought that if he is there, and since he knows Mukul, because Kushal very well, he will get more, kind of that startling feeling, that feeling of that kind of amazement that Kamu Mukhopadhyay wouldn't have aroused. So this is amazing. So the hand of the director, that is what I always tell, and I will end with the hand of the director. And the last slide is, of course, whatever I do, and I tell this, as a designer, I'm very fortunate to, design Ray, Penguin Layer Library. I'm doing it after Ray's death. Almost every national, international book I design, and I learned so much. And I'm very fearful of doing Ray, because, you cannot change the original. Yet you have to adapt it in such a way that it is palatable to the new generation. So with all this, I must say that, you all know this book, have seen the film. But if you want to revisit the film, keep this as a companion. And before I go, this is a kind of booklet that was published during that time. It's a very short booklet. This is a rarity now. Indian films have forgotten about the booklet culture. In Bengali films and in Hindi films, we have this wonderful booklet. So this is the Sonar Kella booklet. And you can see how unique this is. So these are memorabilia that we can just store, keep, archive. And thank you so much for your undivided attention. I hope I have just tried to make this book a bit more, interesting for all of you. So it's a kind of a pitch, but, please go and buy the book. If you want to see the film, keep this as a companion, Think of it as a kind of a companion to the film, and you can learn a bit more, you can see a bit more, and I think you can discover a bit more. Thank you so much. Thank you.